Okay, welcome to Student Planning and Self-Service, also known as the new Data VU. Today we'll go through all of the self-service features and student planning in self-service features, a little bit from the student perspective, and then primarily focusing on the advisor and faculty role in those views. But I'll start with a little bit of an overview of the IT, little bit of data structure overview. Okay, we'll go this way. So our main database as an institution, where all of our student academic data, student demographic data, as well as faculty and staff information live, is Colleague. So that's our primary underlying database. You may have heard it referred to as DataTel. That was a previous name of the software. Ellucian is the vendor for that software, so sometimes that might be thrown in there interchangeably as well, but the primary database is Colleague. That's where all of this information lives. Colleague then feeds information to several other systems that we use in the process of teaching courses and managing student relationships, tracking student requirements, all of those things. So the first one that we'll talk about is Blackboard. And Blackboard, of course, is the learning management system. So the student roster data, who's teaching a particular course, all originates from Colleague. The second one, this is where the focus of our training today will be, is Colleague Self-Service. That's what we internally have dubbed Data VU. That system was, self-service is basically just a major upgrade to the user interface that we've used. The one that we're on right now is called WebAdvisor. Ellucian, again, the vendor, has made a major upgrade to that, to a platform that they're calling self-service instead of WebAdvisor. So it's not new software that we're buying or anything. This is just a major upgrade to the user interface that most of us use, from WebAdvisor to self-service. That's also the system where, if you've looked at your pay advice recently, or if you approve time cards, we're already doing those functions in self-service. So the interface should look familiar from that perspective. Students have been handling their financial aid and their student accounts already through self-service. So the interface won't be totally new to everyone, just this functionality within the interface. The next is Starfish, which is, I think of as our relationship management tool with students. It has some of the academic information, but it really has kind of the student's entire support network and more information about the student from a relational perspective. But that also is fed from the Colleague database, as well as from some other, from our housing system, and a few other systems, but Colleague is still that central hub where everything comes from. And then one of my personal favorites, maybe not everybody can say that, but is Perceptive content or Perceptive experience. That's the system that you use to approve registrar requests. That system is both workflow and document management. So that's what process it directs, let's say, a curriculum change form, that it needs to go, to the advisor first, then to the current college dean and the new college dean, and then back to the registrar for processing, or whatever sequence a particular form needs. That's all managed through Perceptive content. You're using Perceptive experience when you log in and add your stamp as an advisor or dean or department chair, and then route that forward for the registrar to process. And then those documents are all stored ultimately in Perceptive, and that serves as our audit trail, if you will, or our documentation for why this student's program of study changed from communication to English, for example, and who reviewed that and approved it, and when that was done. So it's both the workflow piece and our document retention piece. And we're adding more and more things to that. The ultimate goal will be really fully digital student files instead of a multitude of different ways across campus. The other thing that will be coming along with this change is the main launch page that we all go to access a lot of the tools across campus. So right now, the WebAdvisor interface serves that function for us, so that when you go to datavu.valpo.edu, that's the WebAdvisor interface. We have some things that link out from there, but that's still the central launch point. We're updating that to a more updated user interface. Our programming team has been working on that. This is just a quick snapshot of what that will look like, but it will still have the dataview.valpo.edu URL. So that will still be the central launch page, and then we'll send you to whatever else you need. There will be a preview link very shortly, if it's not already there, on the current DataView page, where you'll be able to go and get a preview of this. It's fully functional, and we'd welcome feedback on that. If there are things that you don't find easy to use, or you can't find things that you're used to finding, please let us know. We'll be rolling this out fully in the next few weeks, so we'd welcome feedback on that. So then getting into the meat of what we're talking about, student planning, kind of big picture. The essential function that we're coming up on, and kind of that will start the change, is students registering for courses. So starting with spring registration for spring 2022 courses, which will happen in fall in a few weeks, students will use student planning to register for their next term courses. But that will also open up the option for them to do long-term planning in the system. So I think you recently got an email about degree maps and doing four-year plans for students. This will really facilitate and provide a central location for that to happen. Students will be able to both register for the upcoming term and plan courses for future terms, all the way through their degree completion, potentially. Another advantage this will give us is a standard tool across programs for doing that. So whereas now, different departments, different colleges may do this a little bit differently. And as students have, double majors or, triple minors or all of the above, as some of our students go for, we'll have one place where all of that can live, a central place for all of the advisors to work together, to be working from, one plan and share notes. And then it will also, from an institutional perspective, allow us to make more accurate projections for course offerings, what students are anticipating taking in upcoming terms, so that we can better decide, do we need to offer 3 sections or 4 of this particular course in the fall? And oh gosh, there are quite a few who might want to take this in the spring, maybe even to help us do an even better job of projecting demand for summer enrollment, potentially. A couple of definitions that I want to just clarify. This may be repetitive for some of you, but just want to go through because they will be important as we talk later. A course, when we refer to planning a course, is anything that's listed in the Valparaiso University catalog. So that's been through the approval process to be offered at Valpo. So XYZ 200, Introduction to the Dark Arts, would be a course. A section is a specific offering within an academic term of a course. So XYZ 200A on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10:30 to 11:20 with Professor Snape and Hogwarts 107 would be a section of that course. And we'll, again, as we talk more, the importance of that definition will be clearer. The advisor that will be presented in here is the student's primary academic advisor. I think since fall 2020, we've been assigning even if a student does have 3 majors and 4 minors, they have one primary academic advisor. So that will be the person whose name will present. We have set the system up because of the way that we do that, so that anyone with an academic advisor role will be able to search for any student. So if you are advising a student for their second major, you'll still be able to find that student, work with their plan, support them in that way. You wouldn't appear as their primary advisor. And the Christ College advisor is the only exception that will show a second advisor, because there's not another great indicator that a student is Christ College, so that will be there. The other thing when we get into the hands-on portion to note is that the email, we will be using a test system, but it has real student data. It's been just copied over from a production system. And if you click on any of the email functionality that would email a student, it will email the student. So maybe consider looking at a student that you know pretty well, that if you accidentally click the button, you can reach out to and just let them know to disregard that particular email. So now we'll dive into the student experience. And from here, for the most part, my slides are just for my reference so that I don't forget anything. But I do want to cover one new thing, and then just a reminder about a couple of continuing things that will look a little different. A new feature that we'll be rolling out is the ability for students to provide their pronoun, and for that to be presented on DataView, both in the advisor view and in the course roster view, on Blackboard and in Starfish. So you'll have extra tools at your disposal to help remember the student's pronoun when you're working with them and when they're in your course. And then some of the additional functions that students will now do in self-service that they might have previously done in DataView would be assigning proxy to another user. We've sometimes referred to that as parent guest access. And they'll be, show you, but they'll be able to assign to an existing user that's already in the system, or they can add a new user, which is functionality that we didn't have in DataView. They would have had to submit a whole request to add a new user. They'll be able to do that themselves. And then the only time it will need intervention is if it looks like it might be a duplicate record of someone else that we already have in Colleague. And then the educational benefit payment agreement form is the other thing that will now be in self-service. Previously, that was every time a student went to register for a class, add a class, drop a class, almost any time they went into search for sections, they would have to do an acknowledgement there. Now they will only have to do it once per term. And then it will be saved out there that they can refer back to anytime. So I'll show you that when we go into the student view. So I'll toggle over and, there we go. So this is the main homepage for self-service, and this view will look the same for all users across campus. So faculty, staff, student. One of the differences in self-service versus DataView was in DataView, you had to choose which menu you wanted to go to, or which, whether you wanted to look as employee or as faculty or as an advisor. Self-service just presents all of the options to you based on your roles. So if you are both faculty and advisor, it will automatically show those menus. If you are a student too, it will show you that one as well. And the same for students. So if they have a job on campus, they'll see the employee menus, all of that. And that's what all of these boxes here are. The other main navigation tool are the icons along the left-hand side. The home button brings you back to this screen. The little mortarboard graduation cap takes you to all of the academic menus, the little $sign, vendor information. And again, depending on your user role, you may have different icons, but it's just two different ways to navigate the same things. The username up here opens up this, a single click on this opens up some additional menu options that aren't available other places. One of those is the ability to update pronouns. That's in the user profile. And we've updated this test student already, but we'll go ahead and update further, and they use they, them pronouns. So the student will click login, click edit personal identity, and then they'll be presented a drop-down list and they can make their choice from there. At this point, the functionality is a drop-down list rather than, we've had the question sometimes if students can select their own, we're system limited at this point to a drop-down list. Then they'll click save. Anytime most all times you take an action in the system, you get this green check mark that lets you know that you successfully completed whatever the task was that you were trying to do there. And now it's updated the listing here to they, them, there. And when we log in as an advisor and as a faculty member, you'll be able to see this student and where that presents in those views as well. I also have some notifications that pop up. This one's telling me that I have a student accounts balance, and that this particular hold will not prevent registration, but would prevent me from ordering a transcript or a diploma. And I can close that. And anytime I have notifications, this little yellow box in the upper right-hand corner appears to let me know that I have something I need to pay attention to. If it's something that will prevent registration, you'll see it will show in red if it's an urgent notification. And then that can sometimes will prevent further action depending on what it is. The other thing from the user profile, also to mention the pronoun selection, faculty and staff can use that as well, and that will present in the online directory. The view add proxy access is here. And this is for students to authorize parent guest access. It can also be used by faculty and staff if you approve time cards and need to assign a proxy to approve, while you're on vacation or if you're out sick or something, similar functionality, you'd have different options. So for this student, we'll choose Daddy Beacon for You Are Light. And the student can either select allow complete access and say, yep, my parent can see whatever they'd like, or they can choose allow select access and be granular about what they want to allow that guest user to see. And they can change this at any time. They can add or remove. One note, if you have first semester students and they completed their proxy setup before their classes began, they would not have been able to allow grades. So they would need to go back in and allow grade access now that they're actually in courses. So if, like freshman students, if they did it during focus, they wouldn't have been able to allow grades because they didn't have any to allow. And then the last function from here is the required agreements. We'll go to it quickly from here. And this is the educational benefit payment agreement form. We have accepted these already. I've been using the same test student and forgot to toggle it back to unapproved, but this one says accepted. It would say incomplete if they haven't done it yet. But this is where the student can always go back and look at this. So when they complete it, they get the option to print. They're prompted and asked if they'd like to print it. They really don't, they may, but they don't need to. They'll be able to go back and view it anytime. So I can just click view. If I had not yet accepted it, it would have two buttons. It would have an agree and a cancel. But I can either click on the link to open it, or I could click print and it will print to screen before it actually prints. So that would be another way that the student could view it and go back and review it. And for this upcoming registration period, students will have two. They'll have one for the spring term and one for the summer term. And so they'll need to accept both of those. It's the exact same agreement, but we just need our process is to have one on file for each term that the student's registering for. And then I'll go into academics briefly for the student. And student planning is the main area where most of this work will happen. So we'll go for the moment into plan and schedule. The advisor view is very similar to the student view. The advisor actually has some more functionality, but the majority of the view is very similar. So we'll look at most of it from that view. And the test system loads a little bit slower than the production system will. We don't allocate quite as much resources to it. While we're waiting for that to load, the search for courses search box up here is just a general web search. So you can put any string in there. You could put just bio, you could put biology, you could put bio 151, bio 151A, and it will search and find those things. So we don't have that in our current search for sections, so that's kind of a nice feature. And then you can filter from there. And we'll go more into that. So now this is where it's telling me I need to acknowledge the required agreement. So that's the link, and it tells me that I would just click on my username above to do that. We'll close those to go out. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just can't see where you're saying it's telling you that. I'm on a phone. You said it's telling you to click on something. I can't quite see where that is.
It was in the upper right-hand corner. And now it popped up and I cleared it, so it's not showing back up. But the upper right-hand corner, there's a blue notifications box, and then there was a red notification box that let me know I needed to do my payment agreement form. And when you'll be able to log into the test system, like even after. So if you want to log in later and play around with it, you'll have the chance to do that, and feel free to reach out with any questions when you have a chance to log in. This is mobile responsive, so it will be much more user-friendly on a smaller device, either a tablet or a phone screen than what we have currently. But it may not be when I'm presenting it, but when you're actually logged in, it's much more mobile friendly than what we have currently. The main thing I wanted to point out on the student page specifically is on their advising tab. Once the student has finished doing their planning and would like for their advisor to review the plan, they would go here and they can type in a note, and you can also see note history. So if you as the advisor have typed a note, or if the student has, they'll all show sequentially in the history. And then the student can click request review, and that notifies the advisor that this student has done some planning and they'd like for you to look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and click that here so that you'll see it when we log into the advising view. And so again, I get the green checkbox that I've successfully requested a review. And from this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and pivot over to the advisor view, because everything else will be pretty similar for the advisor and the student. And I'm going to jump back to my slide for a minute to give you the URL. So if you'd like to follow along and be able to click along, if you go to colleague.valpo.edu.
I actually just put the full direct link in the chat.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jen. And I'll show you what that will. You should get to a page that looks like this. Or did you do the direct link to test F, John, or just to the administrative links?
To test F.
Okay.
The direct link.
Okay, so if you, just for future reference, if you put in colleague.valpo.edu, it will take you to this administrative links page. And from here, you can select a lot of the systems that we use across campus, as well as our test system. So for today, we're going to be using test F, and the F just means fall. It's cloned from fall production data. So if you want to go back in and try this out later and you can't remember the URL, this page is the launch page to start from, and test F is what we're using to test. So now I'm going to, you can log in using your own credentials here. I'm logging in as Clark Light, or C Light, who is an advisor and a faculty member. And we'll go first into the advising tab. And you'll notice that UR Light, most of my advisees are in alphabetical order, but because UR has requested a review, they've popped to the top of my list, and I also have this icon letting me know that they've requested a review. So that's, you'll get an email, but then they'll also be at the top of your list when you go in to review. You'll also notice that their pronouns appear now beneath their name. The other students haven't provided theirs yet, so that's the only one that has that. And then we'll go into one other note from here. You can email all advisees from this screen. Again, it will work right now if you do it, so I would recommend not. But that is a functionality that's there. And this is where you could also search for a student who is not your assigned advisee, but for whom you're maybe a second major or a minor advisor. So we'll go into UR's profile. Let's download it, there we go. And I can't acknowledge the required agreement for the student, but I get the same warning so that I'm aware that they still need to do that. So if you have a student who reaches out and says, I can't register, you'll see that and we'll be able to quickly tell them you need to go and complete your agreement, and then you should be able to register from there. So this is the primary advisor view. Again, it looks similar to the student view, but with a few more additional tabs. So we have the student's name, pronouns. You could email them directly from here. This will normally be the student's email. We've changed it to our MIS office email so that we can test things, but it would have the student's email. This happens to be a Christ College student, so they have Anna Stewart as their Christ College advisor, as well as Clark Light, who's their primary academic advisor. This view, their primary current semester view, is what defaults. In the advisor view, it defaults as a list. But you could, if you wanted to, you could instead toggle and have the calendar view, which was what we saw in the student view. And that displays both the individual courses that the student is registered for or has planned, as well as their a weekly schedule. So this weekly schedule tool is really nice. The students, when we went through Focus, really appreciated that. It's much easier than the pencil paper grid that would, get erased a whole bunch of times when you tried to find the open section kind of things. And it shows that they're registered for each of these courses. If I wanted to, either as an advisor, if I wanted to as an advisor recommend an additional course for the student for this term, or as the student add an additional course, one way I could do that is to just go into the search for sections. So I'm going to look for a GS 390 class. And so now it's populated. I didn't add any restrictions. I just put GS 390. So it's presenting every GS 390 that's listed in the catalog, as well as all that are being offered. So now I need to filter it to find more specifically what I'm looking for. You'll notice like this GS 390 topics in English language culture isn't being offered. It isn't in an available section term right now being offered. So there's no view available sections option. I could still add the course to my plan for future, but there's not going to be a section right now that I can select. Whereas the GS 390 general topics, there are available sections. So I can click this and look, and I haven't filtered by a term. So right now it's showing me both 2020 fall, as well as 2021 spring and 2021 fall. The past terms don't really matter to me. I really just want to see what's available now. So I can apply a term filter and choose just 2021 fall. And now click view available sections, and it's only showing me sections that are available for this fall. So I'll go ahead and I'll selfishly add this student to my own course for fall 2. I think it's not allowing it because I have an agreement that needs to be checked on. Yeah. John, can you on the back end take a look at that? Because the agreements both showed accepted. I'll move on to something else and we'll come back to that.
Yeah, it may be that we're also beyond drop add. So.
Oh, that could be. Okay, I'll just add it to the plan for the moment. Not seem to be adding. That should be how you would add a course to a plan. I'm going to go ahead and add I was using the current term because I could choose sections. We don't have in the test environment, all of the spring sections are not built yet. That work's being done right now in the registrar's office. But we'll go ahead and add a term to the plan. So that's the first step in either getting ready to register or in just doing the general planning for long-term future. So I click the plus button here next to the term. This is the behavior I would have expected in the advisor login. So I'm not sure why it wasn't working there, but it should work from either. So I'm going to go ahead and add this section to the plan. I get the green checkbox and acknowledgement that it's been successfully added. And now if I go back to my plan and schedule, you can see now I have 1 planned credit and 14 enrolled credits, just one other place that you can look and see kind of where the student's status is. And now it has placed that course on my plan. It's in yellow because I haven't registered for it yet. It's just planned, but it dropped it right there so that I can see it in my weekly schedule. And it's also listed here as planned. If I were eligible to register, I would be able to, this register button would turn blue and I could click to register for this individual course from right here. If I were registering for for a whole group of courses, there's also a register now button up here that would register for the entire basket. And I often use the online shopping cart analogy here. A planned course is kind of equivalent to having a course in your shopping cart. So if a student has a course planned, it's in the cart, but they are not registered for the class until they click register now or register. And when they're registering for spring, where right now this says registered because we're within the current term, it would say registered but not started or planned like this one does. And if I had chosen a section that conflicted or for which I wasn't eligible because I didn't have prerequisites met, or was maybe not, I was a sophomore and I needed to have junior standing to take the course, I would get red warnings that would, first yellow when I planned, it would let me know that, hey, you're not really ready for this course, but it would let me plan it because I might be ready in the term when I'm planning it. If I try to register for it, I will get a red warning that says, nope, you can't do that yet. If this section were not one that worked for me, let's say it was just a schedule conflict, from right here, I could choose view other sections. And it populates other options of that same course, other sections on the weekly calendar for me and lists them down here. This one happens to have a wait list. So it has kind of a double, I wouldn't be able to get into it, but it does show me that as an option and I could still plan for it if I wanted to. So that will be helpful. If students try to go to register and a section that they had planned is already full, they don't have to start from scratch. They can just click view available sections. Another tip that one of the advisors who worked with Focus shared yesterday is if you have the situation where a student is, it's like a required lab course or two courses that are required to be taken together, and they have their lecture section, and let's say their lab section is full, their preferred lab section, they don't have to drop it. It won't let them, they have to keep them together, but they can plan their alternate lab section, so add it to their plan, and then drop the one that they already have. And when they drop it, it will prompt them and say, do you want to fully drop this or do you just want to choose a different one? And if it's in their plan, it will allow them to proceed with that. I know that was a little convoluted. We'll have that documented and written up to show you, but we didn't want students to lose their place in their lecture section by having to drop it and re-add the whole package. So that's the kind of a workaround to do that, that as long as they've planned the alternate, then they can just do a swap. Students can also, as they're working with their plan, can just click the X to remove it. If they've decided, nah, I don't want to take that one at all, they can also do that in the left-hand column where they have their list of courses planned. So I'm going to go ahead and try to add a term. Yeah, it's letting me in the student view. So I'm going to add 2023. It's a weird select group of.
It may already be out there.
Pardon me?
It may already be out there.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll add 2022 summer just to show adding a term. And now my arrows will let me go back and look at previous terms. Oh, I do have 2022 spring out there. 2021 fall and all the way back. I could also see that in the timeline view. And again, this would be both from the advisor view or the student view. And this just is a more succinct presentation of the same information. Non-term courses is anything that was not taken as a Valparaiso University course, but was perhaps transfer credit or a placement exam or AP credit, anything like that would show as a non-term course because it wasn't taken in one of our terms. And then when the student has courses planned here, you can just drag and drop across different sections. So if you need to change the plan, they still need that course, but just in a different term. So I could take, if I decided next spring isn't going to be good for GO 104, I could move it to the following spring. Or I could remove it altogether if I wanted to. So that drag and drop functionality, once students have built out their plan, should be really handy. Rather than having to kind of start all over, you can just move it around. And then petitions and waivers in the student view and in the advisor view will show you what petitions and waivers the student has received. So the student has had requested waivers for both Bio 270 and Chem 305. They got consent for the Chem 305 petition, and then they've also gotten a prerequisite waiver for their Physics 314 course. Conversely, on the faculty view, the faculty member for Physics 314 would show this student listed under their requisite waivers, and they would show all of the students who have such a waiver. I'm going to show the catalog search functionality, and I'll do that again from the student view. This will be the most similar to what we're used to with search for sections, but works a little bit better and I think quite a bit easier. So this should be kind of familiar. You can start with selecting a term or selecting a particular subject, just like we've typically done in search for sections. But and you can choose any of the other filters that you'd like. What's kind of new here is you can choose by course type, and the course types are generally the gen ed categories. So if I need to choose a quantitative analysis course, I could just choose quantitative analysis. I'm going to go up and limit. I just want to see 2021 fall and search. And so now it's presenting everything that meets the quantitative analysis requirement and is being offered in 2021 fall. If I wanted to see everything that meets the requirement, I could just remove the term filter and it would show me every option for the quantitative analysis requirement. Some of the other filters that may come in handy, you can filter just by open sections or open and waitlisted. You can also filter within, especially the gen ed requirements, you can filter by the particular subject. Locations are will generally only be helpful for study abroad. You can choose which days of the week, the time range. If you have a student athlete, for example, or a musician who needs to be done with classes by a certain time, you could put, ends by 3 p.m. there, and it just updates in real time. And search by instructor, academic level, course level. And it does show me, since I'm logged in as this student, that I'm already taking this course and it's in progress. So that is kind of a nice little extra feature. The last thing on here that I wanted to point out is the instruction type. A system limitation is right now that is a binary option. A course is either online or it is not online. So for this purpose, online means it is 100% online. The student can successfully complete the course without ever stepping foot on campus, that they can do it all fully online. There's a feature request in to add more options to that, but for now, that's just a binary choice. I'll pause there. Are we doing okay on questions and any?
Yeah, chat's been very quiet.
Okay, we'll just carry on. Oops, lost my mouse. There. Another way that's, again, a tip that we picked up from someone who worked with advising over the summer, when either you as an advisor or the student is working on planning future terms. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. My progress is equivalent to the eval or degree audit. So we'll show the student, what they've completed and what they still have remaining toward their degree. And you can, so this should look fairly similar. I think it's a little bit easier to see it. It's color coded and symbol coded. So for any of our red-green colorblind friends, you can look at both the symbol and the color. So in progress courses show with a dashed circle with the check mark. If it were completed, it would be a closed circle with the check mark. Registered or planned show in yellow. Again, it's stoplight colors basically. Red is hasn't begun, yellow is it's in progress, and green is complete. We're almost complete. So right here is a pretty good example with the CC 110. And these are all for fall, but the CC 110B is a fall 2 course. So that's why it's shown presenting as registered, but not yet in progress because it will start in October. But if I wanted to suggest that the student, or if I as the student wanted to go ahead and plan for the future, I could just click on the course here that I still need to take. And that will open up the search for sections right to Core 115. I can view the available sections. And I'm going to put one in 2020 spring, even though that's in the past, but I could go ahead and add that section to my schedule. Or I could just add the course to my plan, since I actually want to take this in spring 2022 and those sections aren't available. So I'll just add it to my plan and choose spring 2022. And I get the success message. And from there, I could just use the back to my progress and continue adding courses off of my my progress page until I could potentially plan my entire degree that way. If a student is considering a change of major, they can click this View New Program, or you as their advisor can, and then select the alternate program. So this student right now is a communication major, and maybe they're considering English. You can view the program. It won't remove their progress for their communication program, but it will add a second program, and then you can use the arrows to look between the two, and they could see what that would look like if they were to change to an English major. Load sample course plan is a future thing. So I think one of the other things in the provost email that went out today was starting to think about and plan for course offering cycles. This is where the degree maps and the 4-year plans and those course offering cycles will really come into play. This will give us that information will give us the ability to create sample course plans. So if the student wanted to change to BA English, or we're starting out as an English major, the sample course plan would pre-populate those future term plans. And then they could just go in from there, select sections and register and have it all, or drag and drop across terms as they wanted to. But that would pre-populate that degree map essentially for them, for their program. So that's why we'll be asking for degree maps and those course offering cycles, because that's the other thing. If a student selects a course and says, I really want to take this one in spring, if we have the information that that course is typically offered every fall, we can have that also pop up as part of the content in the course description, that it's typically offered in fall only, or typically offered in even numbered springs, something like that. So that will help students to plan more effectively and kind of have a workable plan, especially for major requirements. We certainly understand that topics courses and some of the more specialty courses, especially at the higher levels, are partly dependent on staffing and student interest and all that, and we can't offer everything every semester. Now I'll sign in back in as C Light, and hopefully this will work better this time, and show you the faculty view. So here, what if I choose the faculty menu? This lists all of the courses that Clark Light has been assigned as a faculty member by term. So the first one listed is the most current, the 2021 fall, and then scrolling down, you can look at all of the past offerings as well. If I click into a particular course, this is how I would find my course roster. My section roster, actually, in this case. And this has my full listing of students. So we'll find UR Light that we've been working with, and that's where I don't cover it. You can see their pronouns, and this would also have the student's email there as well. You can email the entire course roster. The only caveat to that would be if you happen to have Acadium students in your course, they will not appear on this roster. They would only be on your Blackboard roster. So in that case, I would recommend using the Blackboard functionality to email from there. You can also export your course roster to a CSV file, which I don't believe we had available in previous DataView. The only, again, caveat to that is currently that export does not include the student's pronouns. So you would just need to come back to this roster. The other functionality that is not in this roster at the moment, it's again also a feature request that has been put in by several schools, is the rosters in DataView show accommodations, show a link to the accommodation letter if a student has one on file. We will be adding those into Starfish. The plan is starting in spring 2021, so that you would be able to find that information if you pull your roster from Starfish. Again, one more caveat, graduate students are not yet in Starfish. We are working on that, but for spring 2022, if you have graduate students, I would recommend that you check your DataView roster for accommodation letters. Your undergraduate student accommodation letters would show there as well, and you will still have access to the old DataView platform as well. So you'll have both in parallel, at least for the immediate future. One other thing that shows on the roster page are deadline dates, which are the drop, add, and withdraw with a W or withdraw with a grade deadline dates here. This is where you will provide grades for the course, both midterm grades if you have freshman students or student athletes for whom those are required. You can certainly input them for all students, but freshman students and student athletes definitely need those, and that the ability to add them will turn on when the timing is appropriate for that. So again, midterm and overall. Permissions will show if a student any students have received a requisite waiver or faculty consent to take the course, or if they've otherwise petitioned to be in the course outside of the normal requirements. And then the wait list, again, if there were waitlisted students, this is where the wait list would present and the students on the wait list. The permissions in the wait list are pretty much view only at this point. The process for adding those, I'm going to jump back to a slide, for resolving restrictions will be the same as it has been. So for permission to register, if that's a restriction that's added on the course that faculty consent is required, that would go through the department chair, as would if a course is reserved for a particular major or minor, or a particular academic level, say junior standing or something like that, or prerequisite or co-requisite waivers. Those would all go through the department chair and be input directly into colleague. Forms are available for student use for course overloads or time conflicts. And then unique things would go to registrar at valpo.edu. So things like a course repeat error message if a student is taking a course for a third or more times, or a class with an ungraded lab. Some of those will still require registrar intervention. Click back to my slides to make sure I didn't miss. Oh, I missed a kind of important one. The review complete or advisor complete. So we'll go back into our student UR Lite, who's requested a review of their plan. Notes. And we'll look at a future plan of their spring 2022 semester. So again, it defaults in this list view, and that's so that I can, as the advisor, I can look at each course that they've added to their plan, and I can either approve them all in one click by approving at the top of the column, or I can go course by course and approve an individual course that they have selected. I could also remove planned courses if I wanted to. If I said, "Ooh, absolutely not, they shouldn't be taking that," or just wouldn't recommend it in this term, you could remove there as well. If I click on at this point, so I've gone through this, I reviewed and said, yep, course 115 is appropriate to take in the spring. Review complete will let the student know that this plan looks good. And that could be for one semester, or that could be after they've gone in and built out their entire 4 years. And they've said, I'd like you to take a look at this. Does this make sense? Does this work? And you would click review complete. What that does, it lets the student know that you reviewed it and you've said okay, or you've made other notes. That's also where the compose notes feature would be really handy, and that would be the appropriate use for that. If it's a note about their advising and their plan in general. You can also just email the student directly if it's just something that doesn't necessarily need to be recorded. So the notes will be retained in the student record, whereas if you just click the email link, that just takes you out to the email provider. It's not retained anywhere in self-service. Advisement complete is telling the student, we've had our advising meeting for the upcoming term and you may now register. And that's what the student needs for you as their advisor to click so that they can register for the upcoming term. So the review complete doesn't have a bearing on their ability to register, but advisement complete does. So that's really the essential one. But when you do review complete, the option that gives you, after it toggles, it marks it complete, but then it also asks if you'd like to archive the course plan. So if if as a freshman, let's say you've worked out an entire 4-year plan with the student, they can go in and change that anytime. So you could do it, this afternoon, and they could go in tonight and completely change it around. But if you've archived the plan, that saves a copy. So you have that copy based on that conversation that you can refer back to. So I would recommend doing that probably at least once a year, and especially anytime that you make a major change to the student's plan, or you've done significant planning to save that. I won't do it right now, but you can see if I and then I can click on the tab for the plan archives, and I can look back at any previous plans that have been archived and could look there. And I realize we're getting close on time. I'm going to show one other thing, and then I'll open up for questions. The transfer summary is another one that will be really helpful, and it won't be so much for the student because they don't have transfer courses. But if I were in a student record that did have transfer courses, this view will show the course that came in, the course and title that came in from another institution, and what it transferred in to at Valpo and how many credits they've received. So this will give you one summary. It's summarized by transferring institution. So if they are bringing in courses from multiple institutions, it would show there. Make it load. This is just pulling in the high school, so that won't really show, but that's what would be there. And if it's a student who's already begun, those transfer courses would also be reflected then on their My Progress. So you'd be able to both see a summary of everything that transferred in, as well as see those reflected in their degree audit and their program evaluation. So I'll stop there and then open up for questions, anything that maybe hasn't been able to be covered in the chat, or if you have any other general questions. I forgot to mention, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but my name's on there. But I also wanted to mention that this is been the work of a whole team of people from multiple offices. So I'll put up my slide really quick with the working group that for some reason isn't showing my whole list. Scroll down. So this is the team of folks from the provost's office, the registrar's office, IT, each of the colleges, Christ College included, the graduate school, who've been working on putting this together, for meeting weekly and sometimes even twice a week for several months. And for some folks, it's been multiple years of getting ready to roll out self-service. So I always say I just drew the short straw as the one to present, but the credit for all of this work has been a whole team effort. Thank you very much. I realize we're at 5 o'clock and certainly understand if anyone needs to leave, but also happy to stay on and take any questions as well.
And that link will remain open for anybody who wants to continue to look around and play in that test account. And Melanie, maybe you want to give the timeline about what we're talking about as far as the advising openings.
Sure. So the catalog, from a student perspective, they will be able to start planning during the advising period, which will open October 18th, right after fall break. The schedule of courses will be available sometime next week, most likely. I think October 4th is the target date, but we'll certainly give the registrar's team a little grace on that. They're building as quickly as they can and have changes still coming in. At that point, faculty and advisors would be able to log in, take a look at that schedule, confirm that everything looks as they expected and as they planned. At that point, as an advisor, you would be able to even go in and start adding things to the student's plan if you wanted to do that, but you can certainly log into the system and look at that. And then, so the advising period will be October 18th through November 4th. Graduate students will be able to begin registering on November 4th, and you have said October 4th, November 4th. And then undergraduate students will begin November 8th. To be able to register. They will still have a registration window like we've had in the past, and that will appear on their student planning screen. So when they go in to select classes, it will show at the top of their screen when their advising window opens. So they'll have that right in front of them, and we'll be able to register after that. Another kind of perk that we had heard anecdotally that sometimes students would say that they needed to miss class because it was when their registration window was, and they needed to be able to do that. With this, they'll be able to add courses to their cart, so to speak, build their whole plan, choose their sections and everything. And then when their window opens, just pull out their phone, click register and be done, unless The only exception would be if something's full or they don't meet a requirement, then they would need to retool a little bit. But for the most part, they should be able to have everything in their cart and only need to click checkout when it's there, when their window opens, when their advising period opens or registration period opens. And they will be registering spring and, I think I mentioned earlier, but spring and summer registration will open at the same time this year. That's new this year. Summer usually has opened later in the spring. And one other thing to note, our freshman students have used the system already. They used it to register during Focus. So this is an opportunity. Our freshmen might be able to teach the upperclassmen a couple of things, but they should, that population at least will be familiar with the system and have used it already. So that might ease a little of their stress that they're not using this for the first time. And for student resources, we're not planning formal training sessions for students. What we saw as we trained the orientation assistants and then used it with the Focus students over the summer was they picked it up quite easily. It's a much more intuitive system than what we've had previously. We will have videos and step-by-step instructions available. We're planning to have to do tabling in the union the week that registration opens. So we'll just have someone there and available if students have questions. The help desk staff will all be trained in how to use the system. And we now have help desk representatives, both in the Clear in the basement where we always have, and also at the welcome desk in Kretzmann. And then we are thinking to have potentially some kind of open lab-ish sessions in the lobby of Kretzmann, right there next to the welcome desk. There are several terminals. And so we'll offer that to students who would like a little bit more support or help as they're registering, even beyond what they might get from their advisor. So the welcome desk, help desk staff will kind of support that, but then they'll have the registrar's office around the corner and IT downstairs if they run into questions that they're not comfortable handling. Again, thank you all. That's all of the formal content that I have, but happy again I'll stay on for a little bit if there are any questions that you didn't want to ask in the group. And we'll have recordings and videos and step-by-step directions available for faculty and advisors as well. We're getting those materials finalized.
I'll give it a shot. I'll be trying. I got both of your numbers.
Okay, you know where to find us.
And we have caller ID, so it works.
Oh,
both ways.
yeah, okay. I get it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, have a good night.
You too.
That's it, Melanie. We're done.
All right. Let's see.
Hold on, I'm not out of the meeting.
I was just scrolling back through the questions.
You're still recording.
Oh, I'll stop.